This is TABcast, brought to you by the Alternative Board,
helping business leaders improve their business for a better life.
So welcome to episode 4 of TABcast. I'm in the chair today playing the Graham Norton role. My colleague Liam Prendergast is in the room, pulling faces at me. No, that's his normal face. Yeah. Face for radio, Liam.
Yes.
So we've got some guests today to speak about resilience, particularly in business, but also in the personal lives. I'm going to do some brief introductions first, and I think we'll start with Tracy, seeing as you're furthest away from me. Just a very quick introduction, please.
Yeah, so I'm Tracy. I run a HR consultancy called Mint HR, helping small, medium businesses deal with the dramas that come with employing people.
Okay. Dan?
I'm Dan from Global Doors and Interiors. I'm head of commercial for Global, and we're a distributor and manufacturer of furniture and other interiors-based products.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I'm John McComb from McComb & Co Financial Planning. I work with lots of individuals, families, professionals and business owners to help them plan both for now and the future.
I'm Mike from JV Controls. We're a small system integrator specialising in control panel design and software.
So that's the boring bit.
Yep.
The interesting bit today is around resilience, things that have happened to us either in business or in our personal lives that have impacted, mainly around how we've bounced back, where it's taken us, where we've had a moment of epiphany. And I think we'll start off really by asking what that is, what our story is, or telling what our stories are. So very briefly, Tracy, can you tell me what's been in the background going on with you that people may not know about?
I think turbulent childhood, I would say. My stepdad was a professional clown. That's another story for another day. So that was a bit of a bizarre upbringing, but I'd lost my dad when I was 6.
And that is, you mean a professional clown? He
Yes.
wasn't a clown, he was a professional clown.
He was a professional clown, yes, but that is, like I say, another story. But I lost my dad when I was 6 to a heart attack, my stepdad, the clown, when I was 17, and my mum when I was 25. So that made me fiercely independent because I had to be. I met my husband who, when we'd got 2 very young children, we found out that he'd got a brain tumour. And he's on his 2nd one now because he's very greedy. And it was just, when I set up my business, we were still reeling from that, really. So it was setting up my business with a backdrop of children, a poorly husband, the resilience that I built up because of all the early years drama. So yeah, I just think I take from it's hold me in very good stead.
Okay. Dan, you've got a big story to tell, haven't you?
Depends how you look at it. So yeah, just over 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare type of sarcoma.
Sarcoma being a
type of cancer.
Yeah.
Attached to my bowel, that resulted in me having 3 years of treatment, some fairly major life-changing surgery, and actually I finished my treatment today, so we'll all have a little celebration at the end. But yeah, so I guess from my part in this, I feel I've only really learned who I am in the last 3 years, and the lessons that I've taken from my cancer, I guess, hopefully will help others.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go next. In terms of mine, probably a little bit different. I think resilience comes in many different forms. It can be from one big thing or many little things. And throughout my life, I've had sort of lots of different sets of challenges. I've in varied careers. So I was a professional footballer for around 18 years, set up a few businesses and navigated those challenges. So I think my area comes around sort of looking at how you can overcome those daily bumps in the road, should I say, and how you can really overcome those and push forward and be a better person for it.
Okay. Last but not least.
Yeah, mine's not on the same scale as some of the guys in this room, but I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in my early 20s, and it sort of triggered me to want to push and try for more and do better, which resulted in a few failures. I've been bankrupt and gone through all of that and bounced back again. And I think it's just on the topic of resilience, there's like you said, there's many different forms, and got a few on a lower level, I think. Covered a few bases.
Okay. So talk about what happened when, so particularly those in the room that were got a diagnosis, or a diagnosis in a family member that was impacted. Tell me what it was like when you first found out about that. How did you deal with that initial shock?
For me, it was a massive shock because my husband was literally fitting at the side of me, and it was completely out of the blue. And I had two young children, and I remember people saying this to me a lot. How are you keeping going? How are you just getting up every day? And my response to that is, well, what is my option? Well, I've got two young children, I've got a career. What would you like me to do, really? So I was a little bit taken aback by that. But I know some people will really struggle with those things. But I just had this drive to just keep going every day because I felt like there was no other option, really.
Where did you think that came from?
I think because of my upbringing, the fact that I had to do everything on my own. So I just, like I say, was fiercely independent. So I just didn't know any different, really, than to just keep going.
Yeah. Dan, what about you?
Well, it was a bit different with me. So from when I first recognised that something was clearly wrong, to actually getting a diagnosis took about 6 months. So I'm quite active, do a bit of running. I was out running early one morning at about 5 a.m, and I felt like I'd been stabbed in the stomach. So I collapsed in the road and got up, and fortunately I was only a couple of miles away from home, so I managed to get home and then felt fine. So just got on with my day. Went out running the next morning and the same thing happened. So that triggered a GP appointment. I thought I need to go and get checked, which resulted in a colonoscopy, and this is all happening at the same time as COVID, so everything was a lot slower. Fast forward to actually getting the diagnosis, and during that period of time, there was, other than knowing something was wrong, I didn't have any confirmation of it. I couldn't change what I was doing in terms of speaking to, turning up for all the appointments I needed to turn up to, having the test that I needed to have. So it was just a case of just keeping going at that point.
And what about the people around you, your family? How did it impact on them?
I was very lucky that at the time, so I was in my very early 40s. My teenage kids were teenagers, so they're sort of old enough to understand that something was up, but we didn't know what it was, and we thought it might be one of several things. So we were able to manage their expectations of why Dad keeps going for tests. And my wife, I think, was clearly concerned, but we just focused ourselves on the process of, let's make sure we're doing all the things we can do to expedite the process of getting a conclusion to what was going on. So that was, chasing appointments, turning up for things on time, and so on. So it was focusing on the bits we could control at that point, where not a lot was in our control.
Yeah.
Your first part of resilience there as well, Dan, was that when you were on that first run and something like that had happened, that you were 2 miles away. I mean, that would have been my downfall straight away. That something had happened and I still had 2 miles to get home. I'd have been calling an Uber. So there you go.
It was lucky it was COVID, because I was rolling around in the road, and fortunately nobody was out, so I was quite safe on the floor. But yeah.
Okay. What about you with your diagnosis with diabetes? Tell me about how that came about. What was going on for you to get that diagnosis?
I was in my early 20s and I'd literally never been ill all my life. Didn't even go to the doctors. I'd never had a cold, never got anything. And this one year I got a bit of a cold around January and just couldn't shake it for months. And I went and had some blood tests in probably March time. results of them were, oh, your sugars are high. They were fasting blood tests, and we think you're diabetic. And
yeah, when I
what
got
does that mean?
diagnosed, I was drinking. I was going to the newsagents, and I was living on my own at the time. I was in my late 20s. I was going to the newsagents and buying those big 2-litre bottles of Coke and drinking a full bottle in a night, and not thinking there was anything wrong or abnormal about that. I was just constantly thirsty.
Well, that was one of my symptoms as well. I could probably drink a 2-litre bottle, we're filling it with water, and I could probably drink it in one go.
Yeah,
Which is crazy to me now,
Yeah.
because I couldn't do that now. But at the time I was, and then the urge to go to the toilet as soon as you felt like you needed to go for a wee, you literally had seconds to get there. A few times I had to just jump out of the car and
yeah,
in some wherever I could go, really, basically.
yeah.
But yeah, the getting the diagnosis, I don't think it bothered me too much. At least it was an answer, and I didn't see it as anything major. Do you know?
I asked my doctor when I'd get better. I had no concept of it being a chronic. I didn't even know what it was. Like being a chronic illness. When will I get better?
Exactly. Well, exactly. And then you start doing a search on the internet, and you're
Realising you're stuck with
loads
it.
of worst case scenarios of people having amputations and stuff like that, and then the focus is how to avoid it. But other than that and getting over the maybes, I think I was okay with it all. And the worst part was learning I have to have injections every day, and still don't like needles, but my first one took me half an hour to give myself. Just sounds like something and nothing now, but at the time it really bothered me, and that's where probably the biggest struggle at the early days.
John, what about you?
In terms of health, I've got lots of family ill health. Probably the toughest time that tested my resilience was May 2020, so in COVID. My dad had lung cancer at the time. He'd had cancer previously twice and had a heart attack. So he was obviously on the shielding list at the time. So my mum worked in a care home, decided to not work there and stay at home because he didn't want to bring COVID back and give it to my dad. Started to get a bit of a cough, which doctors weren't sure was COVID or not. Kept treating her for a chest infection and then got rushed into hospital. And she got diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 4. And 2 weeks later, she passed away. So that was really tough. My dad at the time was on the shielding list. So we had the decision of, does my dad go to the hospital? Because at the time, I was going to lose my mum and didn't really want to lose my dad as well. So my dad didn't go for first week, but then started going. So yeah, that time was really, really tough. As a family, we're really tight knit, so that was really helpful. We're pretty tough as a family, and we just don't talk much about our feelings and put our head down and carry on. And probably what really helped, actually, me and my brother set up a logistics business. Not something we wanted to do, but there's an opportunity there, and sitting at home in COVID thinking about it all day was not great. So we said, we'll just go out, be out delivering, running the business 24 hours a day, which was really tough. But I think that really got us through that process.
So taking your mind off it and focusing on something else. So from a point of view of the rest of the room, how did the impact of that news affect your working life? What did you do? What was your reaction? How did you deal with it from a point of view of how you managed your business and your jobs around that?
I think for me, I didn't have a business at that time. I never run a business. I worked at the same place I'd worked since leaving school, and it almost instantly made me think, is my lifespan capped in my situation? And I didn't have kids then either. What do I need to do to make the most out of whatever time I've got?
So a bit of an epiphany.
A bit of a kick up the backside, I think, more than anything. And within 6 months, I'd started a business with a friend who I worked with, which was going really well. There were 4 of us. It was going really well. And it was the driving force behind me wanting to do something for myself. And I'm not saying not have to answer to anyone, because that never really bothered me, but a little bit of that, have some control and feel I could do a better job without restrictions.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Tracy?
I set up my business 8 years ago, and we were coming out of the I suppose the aftermath of the first tumour. So when I set up my business, I was adamant I wasn't going to be one of those business owners that worked silly hours. I was always going to have a really good work-life balance, and touch wood, I am managing to do that because family is just so important. I've got to be there for my husband, got to be there for my children, but I still want a business. And I think you can have it all. I think you just need to work smart, really. So I was just adamant that it wasn't going to define me, and my business wasn't going to take over either.
Did you find that you were putting the other things in a box because of that, or you were allowing yourself time to think about both?
For the first, I'd say 3 years of my husband having the brain tumour, it being operated on, and huge aftermath from that, I was just totally in control, and I didn't have my own business at the time. But once things settled down, I crashed massively. I had a whole year of being really poorly because I'd held it all together.
Yeah.
Whereas now I get a lot of help. I really look after my health. I go and see a life coach. I do lots of things to make sure that I'm not going to drop off the edge of a cliff like I did that time.
Dan, what about you in your working capacity? How did it impact?
Yeah, well, so straight after the diagnosis, I went onto treatment virtually immediately, and I was really lucky with that treatment. So, symptom wise, brain fog, fatigue. Some say they notice no difference in me, but I'm not going to be the judge of that. A bit of nausea, but actually I didn't get any of the other symptoms that are often associated with cancer treatment. And as an employee of our business, I was really lucky in that as we started to understand how I was responding to the drugs, and making some horrendous mistakes in certain things where I just wasn't able to focus, we were able to adjust my role and my working pattern just to allow me to get settled in and cope with that. And knowing that I had that support behind me was amazing. And so, yeah, I count my lucky stars that I was in that situation at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of my working life changed quite a lot around that time COVID, because, yeah, I always wanted to stay in professional football. It's what I've always wanted to do. My brother was a professional footballer as well, so from being 2-3 years old and kicking a ball and wanted to stay in football, so I did all my coaching badges, got a sports science degree, and thought that's what I wanted to do. And I think around that time, I think COVID as well as my mum passing away, really changed people's perspectives. And now my why I get up in the morning is a little bit different. I think it's a difficult period of most people's life, that transition from being a professional sports person to then losing your identity and why you get up every morning. All factored together was quite difficult. So I decided I didn't want to stay in football anymore, and I wanted to set up businesses and run my own business, but with the aim of making the most of my life and spending time with the family and the people that matter the most. My idea was always go work really hard, do well, and then having a really good retirement, but we're not guaranteed to always get to that point. And also, yeah, there's lots of life to live before you get there that you can, I think Trace mentioned, you can have that right balance, and being able to do that is quite a skill as well. It's quite difficult, isn't it? I think we all look for that work-life balance, but being able to do that day in, day out is pretty difficult. I had it this week, actually. It was my youngest daughter's birthday, and I had a meeting, and my wife just said, yeah, you're not going to that meeting because you need to be here to open your daughter's presents, because that's why you set up business. And I was like, yeah, you're totally right. So yeah, I think that's how it changed mine. It was just reframed what was important in my life, and just let me take a step back and sort of see that from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so think about the perception you've just mentioned, your wife there, and what she said to you about, come on, you need to beat your daughter's birthday. Other people's perceptions on how do you think it's impacted on generally on the way people approach and talk to you when they know that you've got something going on in the background? Did you find that comfortable or uncomfortable? Did you want them just to go away and stop talking about it? How did you feel about that?
For me, I've always been really, really open about talking about my cancer. I'm happy to share all the gory details with people if they're interested. The one thing I really noticed though when I was first diagnosed is that people try and empathize with you, and oftentimes they will tell you that they know someone who's died of cancer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you've just been diagnosed, that
You don't want to hear that, do you?
not massively helpful. And I've learned to kind of understand what people are doing when they're doing that. It's trying to empathize and find a level. Interestingly, I got involved with a charity called Move Against Cancer, which supports people in keeping active when they're living with or beyond cancer, and that increased my exposure to other people who are on a similar journey to me. Being able to share my stories and hear from other people was massively beneficial, because what it made me do was realize that I could focus on the things that I was lucky to have in my life rather than the things I was unlucky to have. And that simple bit of reframing, I had cancer, sure, but I had a family who loved me, and I was in a position in my career that meant that even if I had to stop work, we'd be fine. And we'd caught the cancer at a certain time and I was responding well to treatment. I was able to focus on the positive bits rather than get bogged down in all the sort of why me side of things.
I think when I got my cancer diagnosis nearly 3 years ago now, I was quite lucky. I dodged a bullet really. I got my diagnosis before it went beyond stage 3. And I think I just started to see things in life that were great, all that positivity, all the great things. I'd listen to music in the car and all of a sudden the lyrics had come alive and everything just seemed to be amplified from a point of view of the quality of life and all the good things. So what about you, Tracy? Back to Tracy again, what about you because you talked about, you're a dancer, aren't you? Am I right in saying that?
I am a dancer, yes. I do tap dancing, yes. No jokes, please. For me, the brain tumour was just something that we dealt with. The real issues for us was the aftermath of it, because they removed the tumour, they just said, right, it's gone, off you go. And it's only when the second tumour came about that he's now getting lots of counselling. He's actually being treated as if he's got autism now, which is as a direct result of the brain. He's got brain damage. And we lost, I would say, 60% of our friendship group because of the aftermath of his brain tumour, because people didn't understand that he'd changed as a person. In fact, one of my really good friends at the time said, it's like finding out that Santa Claus isn't real, finding that Paul's got these things. So that was the massive fallout for us that just crucified us. But what that did is it brought us together as a family unit, really close. And, I think my kids are real family orientated because of that, and they've had to deal with more things than you'd want any child to deal with. But it's really brought us closer together.
I think that's like we were just talking about, you appreciating things you've got because something's happened to you. The same for your kids; they're appreciating more in life.
Massively. And I don't think, and the teenagers, and they can still be annoying, but I think they've just got a deeper understanding of what being a family unit is all about, which I've taken great strength away from that.
Yeah, I think if I look at my experience and way I look at resilience and dealing with that and other things I have through my life, I'm quite an analytical person. So I think that for me, it's breaking it into 3 different phases, really. So one is the preparation before, the next one is a reaction, what happens, and then recovery from that point. So I think I try and do it with my daughters quite a lot. I feel like I'm a really fair person, but I explain to them probably on a daily basis that life isn't fair. We don't all get dealt the same hand. And I think whether that's in business or family, preparing people that there's going to be bumps in the road. No one's path even though sometimes people's path looks like it from the outside, everyone has their challenges. So being prepared, I think, really helps, because you know that something will come up and you're prepared for it. Then just the reaction when it happens. I think it's natural to be negative and down about it. And I think sometimes it's probably a good thing for a short while to do that. But then what you've mentioned there, just trying to see the positive in it, and supporting, getting people around you that are really supportive and finding the right people. And then out of that, I think there's always a positive to come out of it, even the worst situations that we've all been through. You've touched on a couple already. There is always positive things. So it's then just looking at that and thinking, what are we going to learn, and how are we going to come out the other side better? So I always go back to the same as in businesses, sort of planning, working really hard and analysing, and trying to do that in your recovery, is a process that I think really works. And we've touched on it a few times. I think the more you go through those processes and come out the other side, I think you find it a lot easier to deal with.
That thing you said about recognising life isn't fair, I think is really important, but also being able to then learn from your experiences, but not be drawn into just focusing on the bits that were unfair and dwelling on them. I see people all the time who just can't move on from the fact that it's not fair, and I think being able to let go of that and be able to say, well, the that's done, these are the cards I've been dealt, I'm going to play them, and move forward is a really important part of that. And what you're saying there is exactly right. Analysing that, understanding it, but being able to go, right, well, that's done now, so how do we move forward from here?
Yeah, and I'd say that when you get to that point is, right, we're at a new start point now.
Yeah.
Right. What happens beyond there is in our control now.
Yes.
And where can we take that? Because you can complain about it and sit around and mope, but you've got a start point, and that's not going to go anywhere. So the quicker you can do that and look forward, the better.
Do you think that because of your own experiences, the things you've had to deal with in your life, that maybe changes the way you perceive other people and the way you react to other people?
I think you care less. If somebody's negative, you don't let it bother you as much. Or I haven't, anyway.
I think you're right.
I think I used to worry about everybody and everyone else's thoughts and how they saw me and things like that. And then later on in life, I don't know if it was anything to do with diabetes or what, or just growing up, I learned to, if someone's really that bothered by how I am or what I'm doing, that's fine. They can be their own person, and I'll surround myself with people who are positive around me. And positivity, I think, is what I've noticed in this room now. Everyone's been through some awful things in their life and tough challenges, but you all seem very positive naturally. And I think that might be something that...
Yeah. I think I probably frustrate people, because I know with my kids, if they'll come to me with a problem, I'm always looking for what are the positives in this situation. And sometimes I have to recognize that actually sometimes they just want to have a moan. And have a little bit of a wallow. But yes, I do find myself always thinking, well, I'm lucky to be here, so I'm not going to waste my time with people who are in a different place. I'll certainly give them some time, but if I'm not going to change who I am.
I didn't mean in the case of like someone having a moan, because I think that's really healthy as well, to just get your stressful
Everybody's
feelings
are valid out in the
park
moment.
it. Yeah, exactly. I just meant some people can't handle positive thinking sometimes, because I've got friends I've got a particular friend who's really positive about everything, and it sometimes comes across as fake, but he's not at all. And some of my other friends don't sort of see eye to eye.
Yeah.
They think there's something going on, and I've known him since I was 10 years old. I know the guy, and he's not like that at all. He's just the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
So that's fine that they don't mix, and that's kind of on a different wavelength to what I.
There's an element as well, I think, of you said, putting a positive swing on everything, is that also when things aren't going wrong, you're looking for opportunity in it all the time, rather than saying, well, this isn't going to work. You're always looking for there must be an opportunity, there must be something positive
You're not
around.
dwelling.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not dwelling, not letting yourself.
I'm a bit of a fixer, and that comes in naturally with the job that I do. And I don't know if it's come with age or if it's come with all the challenges. I do have to stop myself trying to fix everything all the time, because I just don't have the capacity to do it. And it's not that I don't want to be helpful, but again, going through it's helped me really hone in on what is important, rather than trying to fix everybody's problems in the world. And maybe that's me being a bit more selfish. I don't know, but I've had to make that decision.
Yeah, I think I'm like that, and I speak to my wife about quite a lot with my two girls. You try and fix all of their problems, but I don't think long term it's a good solution, because we talk about resilience today, and I think there is innate bits of resilience that come naturally to lots of people, but you can also build resilience. And if you look through your past, you will have built a lot of resilience. I think there's a case where big things happen and it can really damage your resilience for the rest of your life. But I think small resilience, and I say that with my children, they don't experience enough sort of problems, and
Trying to let them fix it
try and fix that and let them deal with problems and overcome resilience. Because when bigger things come, then you have to overcome that resilience, and I think you can build it. And if I look into business, I would say to most people running the businesses, you can help staff with resilience in terms of helping them build their resilience over a period of time to get used to certain things. And I think the culture of, like we mentioned before, being prepared for it. 'Cause I think if you know that things are going to happen, you sort of feel like, and then dealing with it positively, you'll probably deal with it a lot better if you can do that.
And what about the aspects of your life that weren't working or you weren't happy with, but you just allowed to continue? Did you have any sort of clear out of stuff, or clear out of people, or things that actually I don't want this anymore? I'm not doing it.
The day I'd been thinking for a long time about becoming a vegetarian. My son's been a vegetarian all his life. From about the age of 3 or 4, when he realised he was eating pets, was his explanation, and he doesn't want to do that. And I've always thought I'm really proud of how he made that choice, and I'd always thought about it. And yeah, so whether it just coincided with the moment I got diagnosed, but at almost exactly the same time, I changed to a vegetarian diet, and whether that fits with what you say, I don't know. But yeah, it was just something I'd thought about for years and never really been pushed myself enough to go and do it. And actually, I just made that change at that point.
Yeah, I'm thinking more from my point of view. When I got my cancer diagnosis, and then maybe a year after my brother-in-law died of cancer, it was that moment I thought, you know what, the stuff that's not great in my life, I'm not putting up with anymore. It's gone. I'm going in a different direction. You know, if like you said about your lifespan might be a little bit shorter because of the conditions that you've got. You think, I'm going to use this well, and I'm not going to get dragged down by people and things around me that actually aren't positive anymore. And if I've got negativity in my life, it's gone, it's going. So I had a bit of a clear out, and I'm not going to go into detail on what that was, but I had a bit of a clear out of stuff.
Yeah, well, I wasn't getting it. I was actively going and saying, right, I'm cutting these people out of my life. It was just a natural thing. I think beforehand I had multiple groups of friends, and I made loads of effort to make sure I saw everybody, and then I stopped my effort in that direction. And if they were still coming back around to see me, I'd sort of reciprocate the same levels backwards, and then you find out who is really there for you. I mean, I didn't have any. I wasn't even telling them about anything. I don't even bring it up normally. So I just let things pan out naturally. I wasn't trying to cut anything off.
Yeah, you've touched on that really, Tracy, haven't you, about people in your life that haven't dealt with your husband's diagnosis very well and his behaviour very well.
So that was kind of like a fallout from it, but actually it was one of the best things ever, because now the people that we have that are around us we're really close with. They know everything. They accept us for who we are, and it's brilliant. But I just just do what's right for us and the family now, and I just don't do things that make other people happy. I just do what makes us happy. So doing the dancing, it's just like, I'm going to go for this, and I don't really, even though I look ridiculous, I don't care, because I'm like, it's what makes me tick and makes me happy, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
I think I certainly have a different relationship with stress since diagnosis. Prior to that, I think I would describe myself as a fairly anxious person. I now don't get stressed about things that aren't worth putting my effort into being stressed about. It's worth being stressed about whether I turn up for my next CAT scan. It's not worth being stressed about whether or not I meet a certain number or something. I'll still aim to try and do that, but I won't lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big change.
Yeah. It's healthier, isn't it? That way of thinking.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about professional football? You talked before we came into the podcast around people not really understanding the stresses and the difficulties in that industry or that sport. Give us a bit of a background about what you meant by that.
Yeah, I think being a professional footballer was amazing. I wouldn't change it. Absolutely loved every bit of it, but I think it's a lot more difficult than most people think. It's really, you have to be really tough and really resilient, because there's lots of a long process from starting playing around 2 or 3. I signed for Huddersfield Town at 10, and all the way through, signed as a scholar at Huddersfield, made my debut, and then moved on to a few other clubs. And yeah, within that, same as within life, there's going to be setbacks. I've been released a few times, got injured, been sent off, fallen out with managers, all sorts of different elements of it, and you've got to bounce back pretty quickly and be pretty resilient. But I think the biggest one is you get judged every single day, which I don't think most of us do in everyday life, and that comes from everyone. So whether it's the player next to you, whether it's a fan, whether it's a manager, whether it's a chairman, the person who's doing the trolleys in Tesco when you're doing your shopping, there's not much escape some days, and you have to be pretty resilient to that, because when I played, there was lots of things in terms of there's 5 or 6 of you in the same position, and every Saturday or Tuesday 2 of you get to play, so you're working with them and you got a relationship, but at the end of the day it's 2 of you get picked. And I don't think we do that in other industries. If we were all sat there and there's 5 of us and said, right, we've got a big event on Saturday, we're going to pick 2 of you, and you don't get picked, lots of people have thought, but you've got another game on Tuesday, so you might not get picked, but then on Tuesday you're back in. Even on training on the Monday, you make a mistake, and then they go, do you know what, you swap over, you're going to be playing tomorrow, you're not. And you've got to bounce back from that. I've even been, turned up to a game and walked in and saw, a player that I recognised who was in my position, and we just signed him, and I thought I would be playing, and he's just in your place, and you've got to be on the bench for that game and deal with it. So I think there's a lot of resilience within being a footballer, because there's setbacks sort of every day and every week, but to make it to a high level, which I played professionally, but not to a very high level, but the best players in the world, they're used to that resilience of getting knocked.
If that was in the workplace, there'd be grievances every day.
Yeah.
Why do you pick them over me?
And also, and being in a more business workplace environment, I know you're in HR, in a football dressing room, you'd have a field day, to be honest. I've had things thrown at me, all kinds of stuff. And that's just the environment you get used to, and it's pretty regimented. If you're told to turn up at 10 o'clock, you turn up at 10 o'clock or you get fined, and all those issues. So there's lots of good elements to it, but I think the resilience part of it is really tough, because you do get judged, like I say, day in, day out. And when you have 10,000 people telling you how rubbish you are at your job, it's quite difficult, really.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
They never said I was rubbish.
Did they? All right, okay.
Just once a day.
There was no derogatory chants from the terraces then?
Yeah. Oh, you get all sorts. You know what? When I dropped down to semi-professional, that was worse, because
you can hear it more.
You could hear every single voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone telling you that you were slightly bigger than you used to be, but in a different format. It was actually worse sometimes in semi-professional because you could hear, the three men stood there with 3 pints, just giving you lots of abuse. But like I say, it was an amazing experience. But you have to be really resilient. And I say to lots of business owners, as long as they're qualified and the right people, I'd employ ex-professional athletes because they have lots of traits that are really good within business. Resilience being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell us about your marathon running. How did that come about?
Long before cancer, I'd always been into keeping fit enough and running marathons and bits and pieces. I had the surgery in May 2023 and recovered a lot quicker. For context, I'd had part of my bowel and my prostate removed. Was expected to take sort of 6 to 12 weeks to recover and be able to walk again properly. And while I was in hospital, the charity Move Against Cancer that I do a bit of stuff with announced that they were doing the Yorkshire Three Peaks Challenge as an event. And I couldn't get out of my hospital bed when they announced it. Literally, I stood up and collapsed. But I got out of hospital, and within a day or two of being home, I just wanted to be able to walk a little bit outside. So we walked out the front door up to the next lamppost, and then the next day up to the second lamppost.
Yes, it's that thing about setting very small goals one after, rather than the big picture.
That's exactly.
It's one.
Right.
What's today? What's tomorrow?
I was just doing a lamppost. I wasn't trying to.
Yeah.
And after about 2 months, I'd managed to get about 5k away from my house, just walking, waddling. Still had all this medical apparatus stuck to me post surgery. But that progressed and progressed and progressed, and I got to the point where, to the day, 4 months after my surgery, I climbed the Yorkshire Three Peaks, which is about a 24-mile walk and 3 peaks. So once I'd done that, I thought, well, I can probably do anything now then, can't I? So then I'd had a couple of gin and tonics one Sunday afternoon, and accidentally entered myself into a 100k ultra marathon.
Wow. Okay. How did you manage to accidentally do that?
That's not an accident.
It wasn't 1 or 2 gin and tonics was the problem. So I'd run marathons beforehand, but this was another 30 odd miles on top of that, and I'd never finished a marathon and thought I could do more than double that again. So yeah, that was scheduled for July 24, and I sort of trained for it. Unfortunately, my father passed away during some of the training, and I picked up some injuries. So approached the start line thinking I'm not sure that I'm actually going to be able to do this. So all I focused on was around about every 10 miles was a checkpoint. So all I decided to do was aim for the next checkpoint, and that would be it.
And did you finish it?
Yeah. So I thought I could do it in about 24 hours. And yeah, I finished it in just under 22 hours. I was a bit of a mess afterwards, but not so much of a mess that I didn't have another few gin and tonics the day after and signed up for one for this year as well. So
right. Okay. So when's that?
That's 7th of June this year in the Lake District. So it's a bit lumpy as well. And it's another 100k.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm busy that day. I would have joined you.
Yeah. So I think just to wrap up a little bit, going back to the idea of positivity and how it makes you much more positive dealing with these challenges that we've all dealt with. Give me a bit of an angle on that. How do you feel now from a point of view? Now you're either dealing with it properly or you're through the other side of the worst bits, and you're back into like your treatment finishes today. How do you feel now going forward? How do you approach life differently to where you were when things really sort of imploded?
For me, it's just live in the moment. Just, the talk about anxiety is overthinking the past and thinking ahead too far. Just absolutely live in the moment, day by day. What can we do to make it the best that it can be?
I'm going to quote a band that's a little bit before my time, but Fleetwood Mac said, "Don't stop thinking about tomorrow." because yesterday's gone.
Right.
And,
Okay.
that sums it up for me.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with the two previous before me, and I think I've just improved my I think confidence. We don't talk about around resilience, but I feel I've got to a point now where I'm confident I can deal with things that come my way and deal with them in a more positive way. And the positivity is key, really, because when you look back on any bad element of your life that's happened, there will be 2 or 3 positives that probably come out of that. And we've mentioned quite a few of them here today. So the positivity is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just agree with everything the 3 guys have said already, and just prior to any negativity in your life, ironically, the negative actions that have happened to your events have made you a more positive person, and I think that's true with me at least. Don't dwell on anything and keep going.
Yeah. What advice would you give business owners that are going through something right now? Some challenge, some difficulty that's impacting on them. What would you say to them?
Focus on what. Sorry.
No, go on, you're right.
Focus on what you can control. There's lots of noise out there that can distract you. So just focus on what can I control in this situation.
One I reminded myself of several times during the ultramarathon is whether you're going through something fantastic or something terrible at the moment. This moment will pass. So if it's a good thing you're going through, soak it up. If it's a bad thing you're going through, it's going to pass.
Everything's temporary.
Yeah.
Touching on that, whether it's something good or bad, surround yourself with really good people. I think that's really key, because they put onto you what they're about. So if they're surround yourself with positive people, but also people that will help keep your emotions and your decision making in check. Because for business owners, the emotions and your decisions can make lasting consequences, really, and you don't want to make that when you're having a really difficult time. So if you surround yourself with good people, they'll help you through that process.
Okay.
Yeah, if someone's going through a tough time from a business perspective, it's important to just be able to pause and step back and look at it. And like Tracy said, if it's something you can't control, it's not worth stressing about.
Yeah.
And if you surround yourself with positive people or people in the right position to help you through whatever that tough time is, then you'll get through it and it will pass, whatever it is.
We've also got to be careful as well that when you've been through life's trials, other people who are going through, like you said, people saying to you, oh, well, I know somebody that, try not to bring, well, this happened to me, so therefore that will happen to you, because everybody's journey is completely different, and actually don't try and kind of like put your own experiences too much on other people.
And the opposite as well, because my dad's going through a cancer at the moment, and he's had his operation, and the thing he focused on was all the negative stories from other people, where he probably shouldn't have done, because he's gone okay with his operation, but the worry from all the negative stories has consumed him a little bit for a while. But so far so good.
Definitely. I think breaking it down into small chunks as well really helps, because where you see yourself at the moment and where you need to get to is a long way. So I think you've touched on it, Dan. Just having that next goal, because those small goals feel quite achievable. So trying to focus on the next action that's going to take you to that first goal.
Okay. Right, I think that's a wrap for today. So just before we go, quick round of applause for Dan, who's finishing his treatment today.
So Tracy Carpenter from Mint HR. So we've got a website that people can check us out on, and I am on LinkedIn. So any business owners needing support, they know where we are.
I'm Dan Farmer from Global Doors and Interiors. You can find our website at globaldoors.co.uk. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
John McComb from McComb & Co Financial Planning. I'm on LinkedIn, so if anyone wants any financial help or business support, or even just a chat, yeah, find me on LinkedIn and connect.
I'm Mike Garforth from JV Controls. Likewise, I'm on LinkedIn, and our website is jvcontrols.co.uk.